It's on.
Okay.
Hi, hot mics. Okay.
Perfect. So we're ready to go. We're gonna call this meeting to order at whatever time. It's 4:32 per my watch. So let's get going.
How to do it with.
Now they're doing stuff. Give them half a second. Gary, start talking.
Don't forget to send Britton the,
The link when you have a moment.
Britain's had all this.
Training, they do.
no, actually, it wasn't here for, this is a new one.
This one's a new training.
And wasn't here for.
The TV.
Required before they can.
Yes, I know.
That's what we're really worried about.
There it is. Well,
Plug.
Yeah.
Right. So.
Yeah. You're getting there.
no minutes. Well, we just plug that HDMI and it goes right.
Yeah, HDMI is usually what I am cast with because I know how to use that one. And probably it's just a display of extending. So.
You have a USB-C port on that. Got another adapter if you want to try another HDMI, just USB-C.
And Grace just walked in. She's also one of the associates. What's your actual title?
Associate planner.
Well, it was.
Well, we're duplicating. There it is.
Okay, I am so sorry about this. We'll have the meetings ready to go when they're supposed to go. Okay, so Planning Commission, welcome. And now the big question is now what? So what we're going to talk about, there's some legal requirements for Planning Commission, some state law things that need to be done before you can act as a Planning Commission member. So we're going to go through all of those things to make sure you're ready and function tonight as a Planning Commission member. Those who are existing on the Planning Commission, they've already done it. So one of the big questions is, what is the Planning Commission? So Planning Commission is required by state law. It's an appointed body. You are a recommender of legislation. You recommend to the municipal council what legislation should be. You are a final decision maker on administrative items. And we'll get into that more. Where the decision you make is the final decision. It can be appealed, but you make the decision. And it is intended to be made up of citizen planners, people from the community to look at these things and deal with them. All the items that come to you. Typically, Planning Commission members come from a wide variety of groups and organizations. And it might be helpful. Well, one of the most important things is you're a collective body. You work as a collaborative body to make recommendations and make decisions. Now, one of the things that comes up, and before I get into this more, if you have any questions, feel free to just jump in and ask them. This is designed to be interactive. It's also helpful to talk about what Planning Commission is not, because there's often a lot of misconception people have about what a Planning Commission is. So you're not an elected body. Though you are approved by the council, you are not elected. And you are not a policymaker for the city. The policy-making body for the city is the municipal council. You don't represent a constituency. So you weren't elected. You don't have a constituent. You don't need to worry about reelection. And so your role is not to represent a specific point of view. Now, we all have points of view, and it's important that you bring those points of view with you as you come and discuss, because somebody will have different information or different ideas than you do. And so those are important. But you're not here as a representative, an elected official of a constituency to implement your constituency's policy. And commissioners don't have individual authority. The authority that you have is limited to one vote on the planning commission. And we don't talk specifically about voting in here, but for us to have a meeting, we have to have a quorum. And legally, a quorum is 4 members. So there's 7 of you. As long as 4 are here, we have a quorum and we can move forward and do things. It takes a minimum of 4 votes by planning commissioners to do something. If there's a motion to have the motion pass, it'll take a minimum of 4 votes to approve that motion. So as an individual, you don't have unique authority. It's similar to the municipal council. Municipal council members don't necessarily have authority in and of themselves. They work as a council collectively together. And it's a majority vote of the council determines the direction or policy. Now, the mayor's a little different. The mayor has some statutory authority and regulations that apply to that position, that they can do certain things. But they're somewhat limited.
I noticed in the last minutes that there was an somebody abstained,
Yes.
and that went under the quorum, and so they had to table that till the next time, so I'm assuming that's the case. If you don't have,
Yeah.
even though there may be 4 people in the room, may not be 4 votes, right?
Yeah. If there are 4 people in the room and 4 do not vote for something, the planning commission, it's as if you did not take any action and it just fails. Just like somebody can make a motion and it fails because there's not a second to the motion. So in a situation like that, it's literally, there's no action taken by the planning commission. Okay. Any other?
No, that was just conservation.
Okay, so local land use planning authority, and we're going to talk about it in the judicial, legislative, executive context. Similar, I should have you teach this because political science here, and feel free to correct me at any time. But the authority under which we operate here is, there are certain roles similar to like our federal government or state government, where we have a strong executive and we have legislature and we have a judiciary. Here we have a form of government where we don't have a strong mayor form. Here, the mayor is a part of the council. And it is, in some respects, you can think of it as the chair of the council. And so the council will have some executive functions and some legislative functions. But for us, in the land use planning context, we also, as planning commission, will have some executive and administrative or legislative functions. And we'll get into those. And judiciary, not really. Sometimes we call it quasi-judiciary, where you might have some things come up, but that's fairly rare. But just kind of keep that, this is like civics 101. Do you remember I'm a bill, all that. That type of thing. So it's the separation of powers. And with each area of power comes things that can happen. And the two main things we're going to worry about are legislative issues and the executive or administrative issues. Okay. And then the judicial, we don't really need to worry about that. We have an appeals process. Any decision that government on this level makes, whether it's planning commission, staff, or the council, there's an avenue to appeal that decision. So any decision you make on an administrative item can be appealed. Your legislative recommendations, we'll talk more about that. In a sense, they're not appealed. They just go to the council and the council will make the decision and appeal, and then an appeal can go from there. Okay, so local land use. Number one in our system of government is the federal constitution. That trumps everything. Okay. Then we have federal statutes. Federal statutes can trump state law and local law, and they often do. We have federal court decisions. We have a federal administrative rules. We have the state constitution. We have state statutes. We have state court decisions, state administrative rules, and we have local land use. So there's a lot of other law that impacts what you can and cannot do. Okay. So the planning authority, your authority comes from the Land Use Development Management Act, and that's found in the state law at, if you ever wanted to get on, you can find it here. It's found in Title 10, Chapter 20 of the state code. And it lays out the land use authority that has been delegated to cities. Because in Utah, cities are political subdivisions of the state. And so the state can come in and preempt the city in what they're doing and pass laws that tell us, no, you can't do this action. We'll talk here in a minute about some of those things. So as political subdivisions, we've received this grant of authority or this enabling statute that gives us the ability to regulate land use here in the city. And so you are a part of that land use regulatory scheme. And then you'll probably hear me use the word scheme. I don't mean it in a bad sense at all. And it's just kind of a system. I always forget and kind of start talking in jargon. As an attorney, I kind of talk in jargon sometimes, and people go, "What kind of schemes are you guys doing here?" And it's, don't worry, not that kind. So state law will prevail in areas that over our local control. And here are some examples. So moderate income housing, state law tells us what we have to do to, not completely, but a large extent on moderate income housing. Accessory dwelling units, state law has preempted some of our some things, and we have to follow that state law. We've had one of the things that will come before you before too long are design regulations, in a sense, dealing with single family homes. How big can they be? How close, things like that. The zoning code describes, in essence, the box in which you can build your home. We had somebody recently build the box and maximize everything. Literally. But state law has circumscribed some of the regulations we can put on design standards. So we can enact laws, but we just got to be careful how we do it, not to violate a state regulation, state statute on it. Okay. Let's see. So the Planning Commission is a creature that's been created by state authority. And this is the site where you can find in state law, and we have materials for you. This recently changed. Used to be 10-9A. They renumbered everything and moved stuff around. And I haven't checked the stuff yet to see if we've updated it. I know all the existing Planning Commission members have the old code references, and I don't know if we did it for these new ones because it happened fairly recently. And so to set out the creation and your powers and duties. And we have to create a planning commission as a city. This is a requirement. And we can set out the number of people we have. We have 7 on our planning commission. Not only do we have 7, but our 7, if we only have a quorum, is 4. If we have only 4, all 4 have to vote affirmatively for something for it to pass or no actions taken. Other communities have different rules. Some communities have 9 members. Some communities say, oh, it's a majority of the quorum. If all you have is 4, then a majority of 4 wins. So there's a lot of things that we can do. How we fill a vacancy, your kind of rules and order, and how you deal with public meetings and things like that. We can set our own rules on those types of things. Now, under the state rules, it is a requirement for Planning Commission to make a recommendation for the general plan or amendments to the general plan. So we currently have a general plan, but we're going through the process of amending it. Before that can go to the city council to change the general plan, we need a recommendation from the Planning Commission. Also, just land use regulations. So we have not just our general plan, which is a policy direction statement, but we have actual ordinances. The general plan is kind of a high-level policy document that we think we want to grow in this way. This is the type of things we're looking at in our community. But currently, they do not have the force of law in our city. But our land use code or our land use regulations do. So when we amend a land use regulation, like we have a regulation that says a residential home can only be 35 feet tall in a zone. If we wanted to change that to 34 feet, that regulation, before it became law and impacted people, the council would have to approve that. And you would need to make a recommendation to the council on whether to do that. Okay. State law also requires that we have a land use authority to hear and act on all land use applications, and it doesn't have to be the same body. So on a lot of things, you are the land use authority to act. On some things, staff is, and staff acts. And then there's an appeal authority. You are not the appeal authority for yourselves. Currently, the Board of Adjustment is. And so your appeals would go there. Again, just some, you have to make a recommendation for your application process. So when somebody comes in, what information is required of them? What, things along those lines, need to be in that application process that we put into code. You make recommendations on those things. Okay. And let's see. Let's go on to this. Okay. Now, under the state law, before you make a recommendation to the council, the legislative body on a legislative item, it requires you to hold a public hearing. So all your meetings are public meetings. But not everything you do, in other words, the public can see it, know about it, watch it on YouTube if they want. It's being streamed right now. But not every action you take requires a public hearing. And a public hearing is where you open it up and anybody who's here at the meeting, or if we work it out electronically, has the right to make a comment about the item before you. And so you have to allow public comment in that public hearing before you make a recommendation. There are some decisions you make that do not require a public hearing. And we put those on our agendas. So if you get an agenda from us and you look at it, anything that's on the consent agenda does not require a public hearing. A really good example of that is state law and our code doesn't require us to hold a public hearing on whether to approve the minutes from the last meeting. That's up to you guys. You know, you look at that, read the minutes. Do they accurately reflect what we talked about, things like that. Okay. Now, the state law says that the legislative body or the city council can consider planning commission's failure to make a timely recommendation as a negative recommendation. And the reason for that is that if we can't get quorums or something needs to go to planning commission, or heaven forbid, there's a circumstance in which people like, oh, we don't like this, we're not going to show up, so we don't have a quorum or something, that it doesn't stall everything. At some point, the council can say, okay, we just, you know, we can't, for whatever reason, we don't have enough people for a quorum. We're not going to have a meeting. And we had that in January. Didn't hold any planning commission meetings in January because we didn't have enough for a quorum. So we couldn't hold a meeting. If there had been a legislative recommendation that they really needed, they could have considered that as a negative recommendation. Okay, so that's some of the state law requirements, but the city can do things also. And the authority that the city gives you is the authority under state statute, plus those things delegated to you by the city council. And so the council can have you go ahead and dig into an item and look at it, even if it's not going to result in a public hearing to the city council. Okay. So we're gonna talk this. So while we're going through this, we have dinner for you. They're gonna open up this door. Feel free to get your dinner and we'll just keep going through this while you eat, because at 5:30, this meeting will end and we'll go into the next meeting. And I'm on slide 14 of 54. Because we're throwing in a whole bunch of training that needs to happen before you get going. I typically don't like to do this, but this is one of those circumstances. Okay, so all these hats come up, you know, in life, we all wear different hats and do different things. And so we're going to talk about the two main roles and function that you have as a planning commission. And we're going to talk about this road. And one side is the legislative recommendations, and the other side is your administrative duties. So when we're talking about legislative, we're going to put a construction hat, a hard hat up here. Because when you're acting in a legislative capacity, what you are doing is making a recommendation to the city council about what the law should be. What you're creating the law with that. Now, on the administrative side, we have a traffic cop because your role there is really yes or no. Does this comply with our code and ordinances? The law's already set. We're not determining what the law should be. The law is set and in place. We're merely applying the law to the facts in front of us and making a determination, yes or no, this application complies with law. Okay, so administrative, here's some things. You're the final decision maker on subdivision plans, project plans, conditional use permits. Some of those things that will come to you. And we don't have time tonight to dive into what all of these things are. As we go along, we'll give you more training on these types of things. But you are the final decision maker. So when it comes to you, if you approve it, unless somebody who's opposed to it appeals it to the appeal authority, the decision stands, and it is the decision of the city. If you deny it, it's the decision of the city unless somebody were to appeal it. So you're the final decision maker in that. Under certain circumstances, staff is the final decision maker, and some of these final decisions do not require a public hearing. Now, state law requires some public hearings. The city code requires more public hearings than state law requires. And just kind of an FYI, sometimes state law city code requires a public hearing on an administrative item. And that can be difficult because when we have a public hearing on an administrative item, oftentimes the public who come in and comment on that administrative item may not like it. But whether you like it or not is a different matter. And we'll get into that a little more.
So, like I noticed on some of these, they've had neighborhood meetings. Do those count or are those just informational?
Informational. That's a requirement before a applicant makes an application for, say, a rezone. Our code requires them to go out and hold a neighborhood meeting. So the city actually has a piece of property. We're proposing a rezone on it. This will be coming to you in the near future. We held a neighborhood meeting. We sent out the notices just like everybody else and held a meeting. Okay, so now on legislative items, here are things. You're not the final decision maker. You act in this advisory capacity and you give your advice and a recommendation to the council on like zoning map amendments, text amendments to the code, the general plan, and some other items. And we'll help you know what those are and when they are. So now back to the administrative side. What discretion do you have to make a determination on administrative? What kind of leeway do you have in saying yes or no? Well, it's very narrow. You don't have much discretion at all. You can't, these are kind of legal terms of art here. You can't be arbitrary, capricious, or illegal. No public clamor. Or in other words, public clamor doesn't play a role in that. We're going to talk about public clamor here in a minute. And so it's this. Your decision has to be, whether you say yay or nay, has to be supported by substantial evidence in the record before you. And it's evidence more than just a scintilla. A lot of this language comes from case law that we have out there. And that a reasonable mind would accept is adequate to support your conclusion. Okay. And so it's based on what does the code say? Does this comply with the code? All right. And your answer usually is yes or no, or sometimes you continue it because you want more information. Maybe you don't feel you have enough information to be able to say yes or no. But if you continue administrative item, it should be continued for a specific purpose. Okay, we're continuing it. Why is that? What specific piece of information or thing do we need for you to be able to determine yes or no? Okay, so administrative public clamor. People come in and they're really mad. And sometimes, jokingly, we say we ought to make T-shirts. People come in, they're really mad about administrative item. And public clamor, though, under state law, is, citizen opposition is a consideration which must be weighed, but cannot be the sole basis for the decision to deny an application. To deny the application, you have to have a reason found within the code, the statute applying to it. Now, legislative, let's talk about your discretion in legislative. It's very wide. It's fairly debatable. It's public sentiment's extremely important. There's from the Smith investment case, if an ordinance could promote the general welfare, even if it's reasonably debatable that it is in the interest of the general welfare, we will uphold it. There's even case law where judges have said, I don't know that I'd vote this way in essence, but yeah, I could see a reasonable person saying, yeah, we should do this. And so now, sometimes people coming in the same thing, if we're coming in talking about what should the ordinance be, they're not public clamor. It's our friends and neighbors giving us legislative input. But if it's administrative, that they disagree with the code, were you?
Sorry, no.
Raise your.
I was waving a crystal.
I'm sorry.
I just knew she was here because she hiccuped.
So public input, public sentiment is extremely important in legislative items. In administrative items, it is important, but what they're saying should be, if they're talking in opposition to something, it should be linked to a legal, evidence-based reason why under our code we can say no. Okay, so legislative, you make this recommendation, it goes to the council and planning commission, you'll hold a hearing and you have all these people trying to scale the mountain, giving you their perspective from where they are. And you take that and you weigh it, and then planning commission will make a recommendation to the council. And when the council takes it, now the planning commission is just another one of those perspectives, and not just another one, but an extremely important one that we would hope to take into consideration, just like staff's perspective. It's not the only one, but it's an extremely important one that we think you would take into consideration. Not that you need to follow our recommendation on, just like the council wouldn't need to follow your recommendation on something. Now, administrative, we're coming over here and talking about kind of the applicant's legal expectations. We talked about the discretion you have to act. Now we're going to talk about the legal parameters they have with it. So the legal expectation is they have a vested right. If they've made an application and the application complies with our law, and think of it in this sense that they make an application. When they make that application, our rules and laws kind of freeze in place. And we judge that application against the rules and laws that existed when they made that application. And their legal expectation is They have a vested right. In other words, it is their application. You have to grant it if it complies with those. There's a couple of exceptions that are extremely rare. One is if we have pending legislation going on. Another one would, there's a countervailing public interest. That's an extremely high burden under the Western equities line of cases. So a land use authority, when you're looking at it, one of their expectations in the legal framework is you apply the plain language of the ordinance to their application. And there's case law that says if you can interpret your code to approve the application, and you could interpret the code reasonably to disapprove the application, tie goes to the applicant. Because zoning is the derogation of your common law right to do what you will with your property. It's kind of one of the foundational. So if it can reasonably be interpreted that under the plain normal reading that they can do it, but a tortured, convoluted reasoning, we could turn them down. We're not going to survive a legal challenge over that. Okay, so now legislative, what's their legal expectation? It's kind of a trick question. They have no legal expectation. They have no vested right. What they have is the right to the laws as that exist today to develop their property. So an applicant that wants to come in and rezone their property, they have no right to have that rezone granted.
Contrary to what they will try and tell you when they stand before you.
Yeah. Yeah, and I would tell you that as planning commission and the council, when somebody comes in and it's the legislative context and they want to change the general plan, they want to change the rezone, they want to change a text amendment. Our code exists and they can do with their property what they will under the existing code as it exists today. If they want to change that code, that's a legislative thing. And I would tell you that the applicant bears the burden to convince you that that's in the best interest of the city. And what that means, that, best interest could be in the best interest of the neighborhood, could be in the best economic interest of the community, could be in the best interest of the fiscal status of the city. But they have no legal right or expectation with it. So now let's jump back to administrative, and the policy question really is kind of a trick question here. There is really no policy in administrative. What are the ordinance requirements, and does this application comply? You may hate the application, but if it has, the right setbacks, and people are saying, we hate the setbacks, but the law allows those setbacks, the question is, does it comply or does it not? So municipal zoning authorities are bound by the terms and standards of the applicable zoning ordinance and are not at liberty to make land use decisions and derogation thereof. So if we don't like our code, if you see something in our code you do not like, the remedy is, let's take it to the council, make a recommendation to change it, and let's change the law. I can't tell you, I was joking with some people today that I try never to read our code because every time I do, I find something I don't like and want to change. And so if we see something we don't like, that's what we need to do because the courts will hold us to our law. Okay, so the policy question in a legislative context is really broad discretion. What should the property be rezoned? Where's this rezoning coming in? Do we want to give up this industrial land and make it agriculture? Well, what about this? How will this impact the community? What kind of impact does it have on our sewer system, our utilities? What will this mean for police and fire? What about parks? What about traffic? Those are important questions to be asked and thought about and debated and then recommended to the council. What should the law be? How do we want Orem to look? How do we want it to grow? Those types of things. So now back to administrative appeals or adjustment district court. Legislative, it's a recommendation, goes to the council. So it's not really an appeal. You make a recommendation. People can sue municipal council for not granting a legislative item. The last time I actually looked into this issue a few years ago, there had been no case in Utah where the legislative discretion of the municipal council had been overturned on a legislative item, as long as you have a reasonably debatable discussion. People can disagree. Even if a lot of people disagree, is it still reasonably debatable? And councils have to weigh in difficult priorities that are, if you ask people, each one of them's a number one. But you've got to weigh those somehow. And Planning Commission does the same thing. And so in your recommendations to the council, I would suggest, be careful. Don't think that you have to be unanimous unless you are, because sometimes having a complicated issue and it being nuanced is very helpful, because things often are not that simple. Okay, any questions so far? We only have 45 more to go. So I would be eating if I were you, because when we leave here, if you don't eat now, you will
Miss your opportunity.
it's your opportunity. We'll keep your food and I'll give it away to staff. No.
How long should we expect for the next meeting?
It can vary. This meeting's always going
Who
to,
shows up for the public comment and
Yeah.
a bunch of other things.
um,
How many things are on the agenda?
on a very controversial rezone. What's the most controversial rezone we've had recently? Whitestone, Canyon Park.
The farm.
The farm.
And farm.
Yeah, you could have, 40, 50 people, and every single one of them want to talk. And,
52.
and we can regulate how much time we will give to an item. It doesn't have to be, anybody can talk. Everybody can talk for as long as they want. And we're here till 2 a.m. And I think don't our bylaws.
I'm gonna say you can't do anything after 11.
And we can't do anything after 11. We haven't had a meeting go that late in a long time. But there was a time I can remember more than one meeting. I think Jared got me, you were there till 1, right? There till 1, I'd been there till after midnight at a meeting that started at 5.
Not very often.
On the whole, most of our meetings are about a half hour to an hour, usually safely within that, but depending upon what's on there and how controversial.
Thank you. One other question. Who sets our agenda?
That's a good question.
We do in cooperation with the chair.
Meaning
Staff.
staff.
Yeah. What we do, like the administrative items, we'll go ahead and schedule them because often they're on deadlines and we have to get things processed within a certain amount of time, or it could be a difficult issue for us. So the administrative items will do that. When an applicant makes like a rezone request, that's kind of a normal routine. We'll work with the chair and vice chair and let them know some things are going on. We need to get you new members added, if you're interested, into the neighborhood meeting list, so that anytime, though somebody has not made an application, they get a notice, then they hold a neighborhood meeting, you'll get a mailed notification. that'll go to you and you're like, oh, okay, this is coming up. So.
Are these all administrative items today?
Tonight's are all
Yeah,
administrative.
I was gonna bring that up, that they're all administrative. Some of these probably would have ended up on the consent agenda item, but because we're so many new people, we wanted to talk through a couple of these other ones.
Thank you.
But a lot of the administrative stuff has moved to the consent agenda because going through all the steps for everyone wasn't necessarily necessary to just say, okay, we're happy you're moving your boundary 3 feet to the left into your neighbor's yard. So
Okay, thank you. Oh, very helpful.
No, that's a great question. So as you can see in this, when it comes to administrative items, our discretion is very narrow. Personally, I would rather have Planning Commission spend the vast majority of its time on legislative issues where you're making those recommendations about how Orem should change, what should happen, what the law should be, what the general plan should say. Because I gave this training years ago in another city I worked in, and they had a neighborhood chair program. And the neighborhood chair would come in and I gave this discussion and she literally started to cry in the meeting. I said, what's wrong? She goes, I've been a neighborhood chair for 15 years. And I just realized through this training, I was wasting my time calling you guys up and haranguing you about administrative items I didn't like. I should have taken all that energy and put it into the legislative recommendations to the council, get things changed. And I said, yeah, because we have very narrow discretion when it's an administrative item. But when it's a legislative, that's where you can really make, a big change. So that's pretty brief. We got more stuff going on. We're going to be ending here soon. That's kind of your powers and duties and the big legislative, administrative. We've covered the bare minimum that we need to do here. I can go on. We've got.
that clock's a little fast. You could take up to 7 more minutes.
Okay. Well, what would you?
What's next?
Well, boy, we got a lot of stuff. We've got conflict of interest stuff that
We can do that another time.
Okay, we can do that another time. Kind of Robert's Rules of Order.
Probably want to talk about how we do motion and
How we do motions
Yeah.
and stuff like that. Okay. Ignore all this.
don't take anything over $50 and.
And when in
Declare.
doubt, declare. I'll say this, some conflicts are legally prohibited, just can't do it. The vast majority of conflicts are not, you just need to disclose the conflict. So when in doubt, just bring it up. Okay, ex parte communication, we'll zip through
The
that.
other thing, don't congregate more of us, no more than 3 people at a time can talk about something that's before us. That's probably a good point that we need to watch our numbers and talking about things that are directly involving the planning commission.
Open meetings. It applies to planning commission. Well, yeah. Be careful if you all meet at a wedding reception. That's not a meeting. Don't worry about it. But don't start talking about items. And we'll go over more training for open meetings. We'll have to do that.
So can we text each other about things?
We
But
can, one-on-one, we can have discussions, like small groups can, and we probably should. If you have questions, if you have doubts, we can exchange numbers. I'm happy. Everyone's probably happy to.
Just talk about Gary.
Okay.
But yes, but it's the being together so that we don't violate public meeting rules and open meeting
When you have 4 people, you're a quorum.
quorum. So, yes.
Okay. So we talked about meetings. So we're going to come in. Let's see. Okay, let's talk about the meetings, the actual meetings that we have. So we don't start till we have a quorum. And then sometimes even if we have a quorum, we don't start because we have to have it recorded and going and stuff like that. And we weren't ready to go on time, so we had to wait. And if we're in there, it'll be the same thing. The chair, Madeline's the chair. Everybody knows Madeline. Miss, you call her Miss Madeline? It's like, what are you, a dance teacher?
Gymnastics.
Gymnastics. You said, hi, Matt, I'm sorry. Okay,
Rest you.
we loosely follow Robert's Rules of Order, and we can adopt reasonable rules. We have rules that we have adopted. We have a procedure when we go into the meeting, the chair will call the meeting over, we'll give the time and date, look where we're at, the members present, we'll read the item into the record, clarifies any action. It's an opportunity for you on that item to declare a conflict. If you do declare a conflict that you think is a conflict, like it's, this is my next door neighbor, and I just can't be on this one. I want to abstain from this. If you're going to abstain, you really should let us know you think you have a conflict, whatever it is, and then leave the dais and frankly, leave the room for that item. Like if I'm a planning commissioner member and I'm doing a rezone in front of you, and I could do that because I live in the community and I have property and I happen to be on the planning commission. I can develop my property too. But it would be a conflict for me to do it. It's not good if I were to get off the stand and then I'd sit on the front row
Stare down.
and do a stare down with everybody. So if there is a conflict, and if you have any questions on a conflict, feel free to give me a call and we'll talk through it. Very rarely. I did have a planning commission member once. A project came up. He was an engineer. His project was going through. His engineer, frankly, wasn't doing a good job for him. I can't remember now, either they got turned down or continued. This planning commission member, after that item in the meeting, got up, ran out to the hall after the guy handed in his card and said, you really need some help on this. Give me a call and I can help you. And so he had a discussion about conflicts of interest and he decided to resign from the planning commission. So you take those conflicts, then we come in. How it really happens, staff will give a presentation. And then often the applicant will talk, then it'll be public comment, not always required, because sometimes a public hearing's not required on the item. And then you close presentations. Typically, I need to adjust this. If the applicant goes first, then public comment, it's good form to allow the applicant to come up and be able to make comments or answer the questions that were respond to the issues that were done. Then it's closed. Then it's planning commission discussion. And as planning commission, the chair will lead the discussion. And feel free to ask clarifying questions of staff or the applicant or something that came up from the public. And then at some point, the chair will ask for a motion. So when we're asking for a motion, you'll have a main motion. I move that we recommend to the municipal council that Gary gets a raise. That's my favorite motion I've ever heard made. But if nobody seconds it, it dies. And then at some point, Madeline go, that motion fails for lack of a second. Do I have another motion? And so if there's a second, the chair will say, okay, it's been moved and seconded that we recommend to the municipal council that Gary gets a raise. I'm going to be on this one all night. And then the chair can open it up to debate. So to debate the specific items. And then you can eventually call the question. You have secondary motions like in the middle of it to help dispose of the matter, like, oh, I have a substitute motion, or let's limit debate, or let's have a continuance. We need more, and we can interrupt with that.
These happen. They do occasionally happen. It's fairly rare. If we hit one of those moments, we'll walk through it. Don't need to memorize it right this second exactly how to deal with it.
Last slide, I'll jump through stuff. Keep this in mind. This isn't a legal standard. This is something I just showed to everybody. As we're going through a meeting, think about this. If somebody from off the street came in and we're sitting there watching our meeting and they're disinterested, they don't have a dog in the fight, they're not impacted, they're just watching it and observing the process and what was going on, would they believe that they were treated fairly and according to law? So try to keep that idea of fairness going. Was planning commission following the law? Were people being treated fairly? And we'll try and keep you on track for the bare minimum of the law. That's kind of our responsibility to do. But keep in mind this other idea of, sometimes could you cut off debate? Yeah, you can cut off debate. Or no more talking on it. We're going to move forward. Just ask yourself, if we do that, are people going to feel like they were treated fairly? Okay, that's it. No time for questions. Unless it relates to my race.
Yeah, and I want to add one more thing. We haven't talked about decorum. It goes along with fairness. It's a little less formal in here, but when we're up on the dais, how we behave up there, if we're all sitting on our phones, if we're all looking bored, those things can also impact how people view and what we're doing. And so I just ask to keep in mind, let's maintain professionalism. Let's stay off our phones. Let's focus on what we're doing and maintain stability. I think that's one of the big things is that we're here to work with the public.
Concerts.
So I will adjourn this meeting and then we will reconvene in there in a couple of minutes. It's about time. Next meeting.
They can do this without.
They can do this without that.
Yeah.
So,
So it doesn't.
doesn't matter, does.
Doesn't matter. So, and that's all it is.
Push the button right in front.
What's up, yep.
Did you send him? Nice, let me send him, or else you're supposed to.
Yeah. That's Jackson, it's easy to write it down. Yeah. Stan, it's like Danny Woodbury. Very good.
Everybody.
It's very good. Right. Right, that's. Oh, thanks. It's down to our heating. Yeah. So I thought it was big. Yeah.
Introduction.
All right, we'll go ahead and call the Orem City Planning Commission meeting to order at 5:38 PM on March 4th, 2026 in the Orem City Council Chambers. Before we get started, I just want to acknowledge the change over in commissioners and extend, I don't know why I'm getting a little like emotional, but thank you to Haysam Sakar, Jerry Chrisman, and Rod Erickson for their services on the Planning Commission. They've been invaluable in their contribution of time and knowledge to what we do here. And on the same note, I'd like to welcome Susan Matson, Darren Hawkins, and Carol, I almost said it, Carl Radmal to the Planning Commission, and we look forward to working with them and having them here. And we'll begin with an invocation by Mike.
Our Father in heaven, we come before you this day with a grateful heart. We thank you for this wonderful nation that we live in, this beautiful city. We recognize the many blessings we've been given in this land. We ask that you be with us, be with our troops, be with our nation, and guide us that we might live humbly and righteously under thee. We ask you to guide our hand in our decisions this day, and we say these things humbly in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
We'll begin with our consent agenda items. Item 3.1, which is approval of minutes from the January 21st, 2026 Planning Commission meeting, and item 3.2, which is a plat amendment for Home Depot located generally at 655 East Park Avenue. Do we have any motion?
I move that the Orem City Planning Commission approve the consent agenda. Second.
Okay. So Mike moved and Britton second that we approve the consent agenda. And then we'll begin. Britton?
Aye.
Susan? Aye. Mike?
Aye.
Carl? Nope. Darren? I'll get it right. Go ahead. Aye.
Aye.
Yay or nay? Sorry, you don't have to.
Yeah, I wasn't here, so I guess the minutes are fine. I haven't seen them, but I will assume they are. So yay.
Okay.
Yay.
Yeah, okay. The motion passes and our consent agenda items are approved. And then we will begin with item 4.1, which is a site plan for a Comcast generator upgrade located generally at 1834 South Columbia Lane. Jared?
Thank you. This is a site plan, as you said, for a generator upgrade. This facility is already in existence. It's about 0.57 acres. It is in the it says R8 zone there. That's not correct. It's in the C2 zone. And it's been there for a while. The generators are outdated and they want to upgrade those. And this site plan amendment moves those generators and makes them newer versions of those same generators. The site plan you see here includes, you can see the generators, they're actually going to move into this area. And it includes this drainage that needs to be put in there's additional concrete being put in and we need to handle that storm drainage. So there's a little change there for the site, but everything else about the site, the building itself, the entrance, the access to the street, that's all remaining the same. Just some changes in the rear area of the lot. You can see this is a depiction of the generators there on the property. That's where they'll move to from their location here. And they are about 12 feet overall in height. So kind of like an accessory structure typically. And they do sit on top of some diesel tanks. And one of the stormwater department's requests for us as a commission was that we include a condition of any approval granted, that if we're granting approval, those generator units need to be, the tanks underneath the generator units need to be double walled to contain if there's any kind of leak, so it doesn't get into the stormwater or some other kind of containment system. That's really all there is to this particular site plan. If you have any questions for staff.
Any questions for staff?
Just one question. This isn't the main source of power. These are just backup generators, correct?
Yep.
Mike?
Did I see they were adding a generator?
That's a good question. I believe there's
Because there are two on site and it
Yep.
looked like in the diagram you had three.
That's true.
So they are adding an additional
Will be an
one.
additional.
Are they running off of diesel now, or is that going to be new?
I don't know the answer to that. I'm sorry.
They are diesel. I
Diesel
talked
now.
to them at the neighborhood meeting.
So there's already a pre-existing tank underneath now?
I don't know if the tanks are located under them. I'm sorry. I just don't know that.
That's
I don't think they're underneath that. I think the motor is on the back end. The tank is in front from what I looked at. Obviously didn't get in and look at it, but I think that's the way it was designed.
So the diesel fuel is already kind of an issue on the site, but we don't, when they make changes to sites, we bring things up into compliance with modern standards, and a lot has changed with stormwater in the last 10, 15 years. So that's probably the reason for the double tanking.
Jared, can you put the mic closer to your face?
Yep,
Thank you.
no problem. Sorry.
Sorry. Okay.
Any other questions?
Say, is the applicant here? Okay.
Don't believe so.
Nope, I don't believe so. Okay. Then any other questions or comments from the planning commission? Okay, then we'll move to motion. Can I have a motion on this item?
I move that the Orem City Planning Commission approve the site plan for the Comcast generator upgrade at 1834 South Columbia Lane in the C2 zone, subject to the condition that the diesel tanks underneath the generator be double walled or that another staff approved secondary containment system is used.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I second it.
Okay, Susan moved and Carl seconded that we approve item 4.1. Britton?
Aye.
Susan? Aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Item 4.1 passes. We'll move on to item 4.2, which is a site plan for Apollo Burger located generally at 452 North State Street. Jared?
I believe Grace wanted to go through her. This is Grace's project. She wanted to go through the slide.
Grace, come up and do it.
I don't know if wanted was the best word, but it's good to do. It's good for us to get familiar with each other. And so here we are. So this is Apollo Burger that's located at 452 North State Street, and it's been there for a while. The building needed a lot of repairs, and actually they went in for a permit for some interior remodeling, and then they realized as they were working on it that it needed a lot more help than they originally anticipated, and they realized that why don't we just actually tear this down and build something that really works for us? So that's what they've been proposing here. This is a little over half an acre, and it's just kind of sandwiched in between two streets. And so you really have two frontages here. And unfortunately, when it was originally was made, they really didn't pay attention to the frontage on the east side. And so this new proposal really kind of takes care of a lot of issues that we have on site. Do we just do this? Okay. So as you can see here, this shows how it's sandwiched in between these two different streets here, and it kind of borders the residential area here. And so they, of course, had to have a neighborhood meeting, and basically the response was, well, it's going to be a lot better than it is now. And that's basically what became of that. Here's a look at what they're planning on doing. They're still going to have a drive-through on the north side like they already do right now. But again, we've got a big, huge update when it comes to stormwater issues, when it comes to how they're parking, the islands for the parking, the trees that will be on the islands and so forth, and a really big update on the east side here with the landscaping and so forth, so that those neighbors that are facing towards Apollo Burger are going to have a very different experience than they have right now. Here again is showing kind of the idea of the landscaping, and you'll notice that again, we do have trees and so forth on those islands with the parking and so.
Just FYI. Okay. Sounds good.
Is happening to a property, then we ask them to make that adjustment so that we continue that upgrade along State Street. And so they're happy to do that along with the tearing down and the rebuild of the building.
So the architectural rendering photo, I
Mhm.
guess, shows that there is landscaping along the drive-through on the north. On that north facade picture, am I understanding that correct? That there's landscaping with plants and rock there?
This is just an elevation, an example.
Okay.
In other words, this is actually on a different location. And they're just saying this is what it will look like, just so you can see the type of materials and so forth that are required. Because the State Street, again, we do have requirements when it comes to the amount of glass and so forth and the type of materials that are used.
Okay.
And this meets that requirement. But really, when they go in and get their permit is when they're going to give the exact,
Okay. I just wonder because
Architecture.
there's other business, adjacent business, and with that gravel there, I wanted to make sure we weren't impeding anything with an adjacent business.
that makes sense. Yeah, it is actually contained in their site,
Okay.
what they're doing. So,
Perfect.
yeah,
Thank you.
good question. Anything else?
Yeah, can I ask about the landscaping regulations? So
Mhm.
just curious, residents, they have to have a certain percentage minimum of green, something like 35%, I believe, or 40%. Do those kinds of regulations apply to a business as well? Because this looks, that looks very sparse green there. And I realize it's just a rendering, but I'm curious what the regulations are. And like green.
We do have similar regulations, actually. Yeah, 50% coverage of beds. Anything that's required if it's a landscaping bed doesn't have to be turf, but it has to be 50% vegetative coverage. So these depictions or these photographs or renderings from whatever other site, I think they don't reflect what we're requiring in the landscaping plan at all. No.
Okay.
It's just to show you the
The
building.
landscaping plan back up.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't think it shows trees and
It's
stuff.
just trees and bushes and
So, I
think there are
don't know how to read landscaping plans. So, circles are trees. Okay. Because we also had thank you. We also had a discussion in the Orem City Council the other day about how our tree coverage has diminished in Orem over the last few years, and it would be nice to rebuild our tree canopy. So I would favor some trees here.
Yes. How do we? Am I doing that right? Okay. Yeah. So we definitely understand that, as planners, we definitely understand where you're coming from. We definitely want trees to be in the right location so they're not causing issues of course, in the future. But this definitely is a vast improvement on what is there currently.
Is it those larger octagon looking items that are the trees?
Yeah, several of them we have here. So you'll see some of them, there's a couple different shapes. And unfortunately, I did not insert all of the key for you to be able to see, but we have quite a few bushes, quite a few trees on this location. So, yeah.
yeah, and this
All
is
right.
code specific. So this falls into that. Maybe we need to look briefly at our code and have a discussion maybe going forward about options of updating our code to provide for those things, as we were discussing in the pre-meeting kind of a thing.
Yeah. So State Street, we definitely do look at landscaping quite heavily. And a lot of these older lots and so forth, the stormwater has to be updated. And so we do push a lot for landscaping in order to be able to make sure that any kind of water is actually going into the landscaping. So, it does usually require quite a bit of adjustment to their lot in order to meet current code when it comes to wastewater.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? Okay. Thank you, Grace. Is the applicant here? Would you like to say anything or? Okay, please come forward.
Thank you. Tracy Stocking, I'm the architect. I don't have anything to add, but I did want to clarify that we've been through 3 rounds of review with the planning staff, and they've reviewed and approved all these plans. So we think we're compliant with everything. And I want to say they've been great to work with, by the way, Grace and Becca and the team. So happy to answer any other questions if I can.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we can move to motion if there's not any discussion. So can I get a motion?
I move the Orem City Planning Commission approve the site plan for Apollo Burgers at 452 North State Street.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Mike moved and Susan seconded the site plan for Apollo Burgers. And then we'll go to vote. Carl?
Yay. Yeah, aye.
Yes.
Aye.
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 Okay. Item 4.2 is approved. We'll move to item 4.3, which is a site plan for Home Depot located generally at 665 East Park Avenue.
Thank you. As you said, this is the site plan request for Home Depot. The consent agenda item contained a plat amendment for this same project, and it combines several properties that are lying underneath here for the purpose of producing a building on this site. We don't allow buildings to cross property lines. So that's the reason for that. This is the area. This is the 9.27 acres. This is Park Lane here coming in, and University Place is here. So this is all part of, just to kind of help you see where it is. This is Costco, the south side of Costco right here. So the Home Depot is planned for this area here. This road will not go into the project. It's cut off from the site. This is a different zone. It's called the PD 34 zone. It's a planned development zone that was written for University Place. It's a mixed use zone. It allows a lot of different things. One of them is home improvement stores, and hence the Home Depot application. Just to talk about a little bit about what's happening here. As I said, it is 9.27 acres. The Home Depot building and the garden center will total just over 34,000, just under 135,000 square feet. 397 parking stalls are being redeveloped as part of this site. That's just a little over what would be required under our PD 34 ordinance. Again, it's a little different than just the C2 zone. It's specifically written for this area. So there are a couple of things to note in looking at the site for Home Depot. You got the garden center here and the Home Depot here. This is the residentially zoned neighborhood on the back side of the west side of the whole area. And that area here, you can see there are some changes were made recently that allowed for a taller wall. A masonry wall is required in that area as part of the landscaping and buffering in the PD 34. That wall is going to be 12 feet high, or it's adjacent to these homes here, as a part of that rezone that was done recently to accommodate this project as well. So there'll be a 12-foot wall in these areas. And then again, this area here that's a depth of landscaping has been shortened a little bit in order to allow the property owners that are developing to deed property over to the neighbors and give them more space between their homes and that 12-foot wall. A 12-foot wall is a significant thing. And it was fairly close because it's their side yards in these cases. They didn't have much side yard. That helps kind of, the wall is to mitigate the impact of noise from the back of house functions of Home Depot and to mitigate those kinds of issues. And then giving them a little extra space makes it a little more tolerable to have that tall of a wall, keeping those impacts in check. Just real quickly, I want to move to the next slide and show you, we were talking about landscaping briefly. These are the two areas along here that you can see. And from the landscaping plan, the landscaping plan's been reviewed for the PD 34 standards. It does meet all of those. In this area, they've beefed up the landscaping a lot, included additional trees from what's required in the code to make sure that there's as much mitigation of noise and issues as we possibly can. So with that in mind, the elevations of the building are shown here. The front elevation faces the parking lot area. So it faces away from that residential neighborhood. This is the rear elevation. There's a little difference in height there. You can see the PD 34 zone actually in this area right here, right along the back side for the first 20 feet or so is a limited area, and heights in that area for the buildings, for any building, are limited to 35 feet. The building height in that area is 22 feet high. The front side of the building is outside of that area and is a little higher, just over 35 feet. But the backside more than complies with that height requirement. Those are the elevations, as I said, and happy to take any questions if I can answer those for you as well. It is part of the larger integrated site. Those parking lots from Costco and Home Depot and some of the other uses in that area flow together now, and they will with this project, and they will with future projects as well. So there are shared parking and access agreements in addition to that parking that's a little bit more than they're required to have.
So Jared, tell me about traffic flow analysis on this particular one, because obviously it's going to add stress to those arteries already.
Sure. And most of the traffic coming to the site is going to come from the interior and through the Costco side, probably. Park Lane does have some. Those traffic studies were done as a part of this. We have a traffic engineer or transportation engineer on staff, and he's looked at those and approved those plans. So I don't have the details on the numbers, trip generation or anything like that, but that's been considered very carefully. So yeah, we hope it will increase trips to this area or to this site without impacting the sides. As I said, the most important thing in that PD 34 zone is that no access is allowed from that residential site. So it does not come through there. Dead ends in the wall. I don't know if that answers your question or not.
You know, I've just gone through that parking lot sometimes, and
Yeah.
it's a bit of even without this structure, it's a bit of a headache in some of those areas. So
It can be. To the extent that we're able to keep traffic flowing, that's the goal. So the main way through, if you're not coming into the parking lot here, is straight down this shot and then out, if you want. But again, it is connected all the way through the other parts of the site as well.
The impact will probably go on 900
Yes.
south, people going behind the mall.
Gary?
Just for your information, there are plans with Costco to move the gas stations, to relocate them away from that front entrance. So a lot of traffic that comes in off of 8th South will come in that way. And then over on 8th East, in that traffic light that's between the apartments and the theater, it's on our plan already to have that intersection upgraded and provide turning lanes, and it'll
Yes.
make for easier access into that area.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay.
Okay. Darren, did you have a question?
I guess I'm curious, when they do this traffic analysis, are there codes about that or regulations? I mean, what's kind of the goal there?
There are standards to follow and what they're basically looking at is this going to cause any intersections to fail? They're looking at numbers and making sure that the sizing of the accesses and the sizing of the roads are appropriate to handle it. That's all been vetted. So, yeah, but those are the standards.
Thank you. And just, I don't know, also, I'm just curious, how are the neighbors thinking about this?
We had some long zone change hearings about this item. We had a couple. So that's a great question. I'm going to go back up one here because this shows it pretty well. This lot right here this is a residence. You can kind of see underneath that green that there's a house there. The Woodburys have purchased that. They rezoned it into the PD 34. So this project the site plan has been out there for a while, especially in this west line, as a part of that discussion about that zone change for that lot. So it's been through a couple of planning commission and city council iterations and been viewed. A lot of concern about the effect of the Home Depot siting here on these residences, hence the 12-foot wall. We had to change code to do that. The PD 34 had to be modified to allow the 12-foot height, because normally we don't allow 12-foot masonry walls. That's a significant structure. But the neighbors felt like if anything was going to help them not be as impacted by this structure being built here, it would be something like that to handle the noise. Lighting, this, just to your question too, I should mention, lighting plans are vetted as a part of this too, because that PD 34 zone requires that lights not glare directly into yards or windows and things like that. So there's supposed to be certain kinds of lights. Those have all been looked at, should function well. That's one of those things as well. So light pollution, hopefully that all mitigates.
Okay. Susan?
Can I ask a question about the wall? Got two sections of 12 foot, but there's no access. Is the remaining part of that 8-foot wall? We didn't.
This right here.
Yeah. And the corner, right?
These corners are 12 feet. Yes.
Okay.
And this section here, it was drawn as 8 feet, but the Home Depot folks have said that can be 12 feet as well.
Okay.
It wasn't clear in our.
Because I was going to say visually, that doesn't
Yeah,
make any
it'd
sense to have 12.
It's going to be 12 feet from end to end.
Yes.
Yeah. And the wall will be 12 feet all the way along
In this section.
area, just this little section.
Further south, I should be clear, further south, it's not 12 feet where the Home Depot is. So all along, sorry. So it's just those areas that are shown, right? Down here further, it's not 12 feet high because the back of house function of that deliveries of the trucks to the dock and things like that were what the main concern about the noise was, and hence the wall. So further south, they're not required. They get back to the 8-foot wall south of this immediate area.
Mike?
It's also a backyard when you get further south instead of a side yard. So it's
True.
not as impacting on the residents.
Okay. Any other questions from the commission at this time? Applicant, would you like to say anything or come forward? I guess.
Yeah, I'm Barry Simmons from Home Depot. I just want to thank you for the consideration, and we look forward to joining the community. I think we've worked with Woodbury quite a bit on trying to figure out what the best arrangement would be for the neighbors. We've made some concessions, and I think hopefully that's agreeable to all parties involved. But thank you for the consideration.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you. Right. This is not this is a public hearing, but we aren't taking public comment.
Can we just clarify one point I couldn't hear?
Okay, what is your 1 point?
Okay, specifically where the 12-foot wall will go from one end to the other, because the drawings that we've seen have not been satisfactory.
Okay.
Because it looks like the wall is gonna go across where that orange line is, but not across the street. So if you can designate specifically that the wall will go from point A across the street, making the
Okay.
corner and back up to the north point.
Okay.
Sure.
Why it's not drawn orange.
Okay, we'll have.
The orange isn't the indication of the wall? Oh, sorry.
I wanted to restate what the question was because
Sure.
we didn't have them come forward to the bag. The question was just clarification on where exactly the 12-foot wall is going to be delineated.
Yeah, so the orange is actually the land that's going to be transferred to the homeowners. The 12-foot wall, if you start at the very top, there's a little jog there. Well, not, you're not, yeah, east-west, yeah. That's 12 feet. You come down along the orange, that's 12 feet. Come across the road and down the road, 12 feet. All the way down past the orange, 12 feet, go left, 12 feet. And then the existing 8-foot masonry wall starts from there and goes south.
It is all masonry.
It will all be mason.
We just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you.
It was confusing
Right.
the way it was drawn.
I appreciate that.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
I know you're not taking.
We're not taking public comment. Is it a clarification question?
Issues addressed, but I think.
Okay, then pause for a minute because I need to ask the planning commission. We need to keep order and we need things to be on the record correctly. And so that's why it seems like we're being a little formal, but that's why we need it to be this way. Gary, what's your feelings on taking public comment? Because this is an administrative item, this isn't legislative, so.
Being an administrative item, it's not a public hearing, but there's no harm in allowing the public to make a comment. And any comment that they make, you can certainly consider, but again, it needs to impact a code violation or something of that nature for us, or let me step back. What we're trying to do in this administrative item is determine whether it complies with our code. And so public comment should be something that helps us figure that out.
Okay. So I would ask the planning commission, do we want to open for public comment? Well, can you say that into your mic?
I am always fine with letting the public be heard.
Thank you.
I agree with that.
Okay.
I think we should.
Okay.
Well, and the agenda does say under 4, it is public hearing and action item.
Well, this is the public hearing versus public comment thing. Everything's a public hearing. Public comment's different. Although we miscall public hearings and public comments and it gets all formal from there.
We'll
So-
make sure that agenda is confusing because everything is a public meeting, but not everything is a public hearing.
And section 4 of that agenda is public hearings and action items. That's where, so it's where we put the site plans and things and subdivisions, and it's also where we put the zone change items.
Okay.
Not my best format for an agenda.
And we'll figure out a way to better designate that.
Well, I can make that choice. I can make that choice. I was just asking for input. Yeah, I'm good. Nah, I think it's fine. I will go ahead and open for public comment. Please keep your comments to about 3 minutes and understand that we are limited in what our decisions can be here, but if we can help clarify something, we're happy to do that. So if you'd like to come forward, you may. Yeah, to the mic, please, because it needs to be on the record. And please state your name.
My name is Kim Miller. On the end of the street there is currently a fire hydrant that will be on the commercial side and won't be over on the residential side. And I just want to make sure that's addressed and looked into, and I hadn't heard anything on that.
Okay.
And the same thing, there's a light street lamp there. It goes back over, all the electrical goes back over again on the other side, on the commercial side, if that's correct terminology. I just want to make sure that that is addressed and make sure that still works.
Can I clarify your question?
Sure.
Do you want the lamp to move to the other side or
No,
just what
no,
happened? Okay,
leave the lamp there.
just double checking on that.
Move the fire hydrant.
Okay, yeah, that's a very valid thing to bring up. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
Fire hydrant wouldn't do us any good on that.
The other side. That is a very valid question. The street lamp, apparently there's, oh, you guys don't want to, no one else wants to come forward? Okay, then I will close the public comment. So that's a very valid question. What happens to the fire hydrant?
I don't know the exact answer to that question. I only know that the fire department, the fire marshal has looked at this, and the fire department looked at it in detail, because at one point we're going to require a cul-de-sac back there to turn around. So I'm assuming that they've got the fire hydrant located where they want it or plan to move it. But that again, we can also address those kinds of issues during the building permit phase. It's good to know it for the site plan and talk about the street lamp. We can make sure that stays. It's appropriate for something like
Fire
street
hydrant
at the end
stays.
here. Fire
Lamp
hydrant
does
should stay on
not.
that side. Oh, lamp not.
No lamp.
Okay.
This is on fire.
So
I think that's a good thing to address during the site plan
we definitely
review.
would. And I know that the fire department already vetted it and has signed off as a part of the development review committee. So they should be aware of that. I'll double check with the marshal and make sure.
Okay.
But as part of the building permit process, we would look at that as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You bet.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any additional comments or discussion from the planning commission? Okay, then we will move to motion on this item. Do I have a motion?
I move that the Orem City Planning Commission approve the site plan for Home Depot located at 655 East Park Lane in the PD 34 zone.
Okay, do I have a second?
I second.
Okay, Darren moved and Carl seconded that we approve the site plan for Home Depot. Britton?
Aye.
Susan?
Aye.
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 Okay, item 4.3 is approved. And then we will move on to item 4.4, which is a preliminary plat rolling sand located generally at 1765 South Sand Hill. Jared?
Thank you. I know you're familiar with it, but I'm going to go through it because we have new commissioners that haven't seen it. So I will run through the application and show you what we're talking about. This is a fun one because it involves deep lots. Orem calls them deep lots. A lot of people know them as flag lots. It does include these properties here. The properties are located in the R8 zone on Sand Hill Road. What they would like to do is turn that top lot here into a flag lot. So these two lots become a third lot as well. This is the deep lot. It's served from an access that runs past lot 1. So it's an easement across lot 1 to get to lot 2. So deep lots are a little different. So if any point you have any questions, let me know and I'll stop and talk about it more. Normally in a subdivision, in any regular subdivision, as you can see, these lots here all have frontage on this circle. Lot 3 and lot 1 have frontage out on the public road on Sand Hill. One of the only exceptions to having a certain distance, a certain length of frontage on a public right of way are deep lots or flag lots. One day I'm going to change the code to say flag lot so I can stop confusing myself as I talk about these things. That exception allows for an area to be created as a lot or turned into a lot that is located to the rear or in some other inaccessible fashion and have less frontage than normally required out on the public right of way. So it does come with a couple of standards, though, that are additional to normal subdivisions. The first being that this back lot, the flag lot, needs to be at least 125% of the minimum lot size required in the zone. This is an R8, so 8,000 square feet. It's the only math that I do besides acreage stuff. So 10,000 square feet you need. We're over that for lot 2, so it meets that standard. Accesses for flag lots cannot be done from a cul-de-sac. So this is a good example of that. This lot can provide access to a flag lot, but we couldn't do a flag lot here because this lot is from a cul-de-sac. We don't do accesses for flag lots from cul-de-sacs. The deep lot is allowed to have public access, has to have public access to a public street or access to a public street, at least 20 to 26 feet of access. In this case, that's designated as an easement. It can be an easement or it could be physical property. The lot could be shaped like a flag, and that's why they're often called flag lots. Curbing is required for that. Just so you know, this is a driveway. And when the driveway is serving this lot too, it'll be curbed. So it won't just be a regular driveway ending in grass. It'll have a curb to handle water. Drainage is a big issue, especially with lots like this, deep lots. We want to make sure that all works right. No part of that deep lot can be closer than 80 feet to that intersection of the access to the street. So what that means is no part of lot 2 that's created here can be within 80 feet of this public right of way. You can think of it, if you want to simplify it, you think of it as it's an all in or nothing. It's all or nothing. You either do the flag lot, but you don't do a kind of a, well, we're going 30 feet past the main lot and then we're branching out into the deep lot in the back. No, you go at least 80 feet back. That's most of the length of a typical lot. Private drives and accesses have to be concreted or asphalt. We can't do these on gravel, can't be dirt. It's got to be paved like at least like a driveway. What can be done with asphalt though. And it can't service more than 4 lots. In this case, it's only serving 1. So that's all right. They can serve significant numbers more, 3 more lots. Any questions about that? It does meet those deep lot standards as we've seen them. I have even more. I forgot there were more because it's been a while since I went through these slides. Sorry. They're only allowed to be 1 story above grade unless that lot is at least 15,000 square feet. So lot 2 here, the house that we put on it, as planning staff reviews any home plans for it, we'll have to make sure that it's only 1 story above grade. That's to keep there from being issues when you're building in the backs of areas you might be in more close proximity, because we allow these different kinds of setbacks. 15-foot setbacks might put you closer to somebody than normal. So they're only allowed to be 1 story above grade unless they're very large lots. We only allow single family residences on deep lots. You can't do a duplex back here or anything like that. The preliminary plat, as it does here, has to show the buildable area. 2 of those setbacks have to be 25 feet. The others have to be at least 12. Exterior lot boundaries have to be a 15-foot setback. So this could be 12, except that it's the edge of this subdivision. So it's got to be 15, if that makes sense. Primary structures have to be set back at least 5 feet from any private drive access on the deep lot. So for example, as this drive access comes in, the structure also has to be 5 feet back from the edge of that access that comes in, to make sure that they can get out of the access. If there were additional lots being served by this access way in back of those, in back of lot 2 here, you want to make sure that people can get out of the way and they're not blocking that access. A lot of angry people result from blocked driveway accesses like that. Garage doors and carport entries facing deep lot accesses have to be set back 18 feet. So if your house is there, it's got to be at least 5 feet back, because people are prone to kind of pull alongside their house, right? But if your driveway or if your garage is facing that access, you got to be at least 18 feet from that driveway with the house setback, regardless of what our setback rules are of 12 or 15 feet or whatever it is. And those are the standards you want to look for in deep lots. So we would review all of those with any house plan that came in and make sure that meets all those standards. That's our job as the planners. And other than that, the subdivision meets the standards for deep lots as they're contained in our code. Any questions?
Do the state accessory mandates apply? Do they have access to accessories here?
Accessory dwelling units?
Yeah.
So you can do an accessory dwelling unit on a flag lot. Yeah, it would be legitimate for that.
Okay, as long as there's adequate.
The same standards would apply though. They'd have to provide extra parking for that unit. And sometimes that gets tricky with flag lots if they're not really big, if they're barely meeting those minimums. It can get tricky to provide the normal parking for the regular unit and then additional parking. We have standards for that are required for our ADUs. But technically, yeah, they're eligible for ADUs.
Okay.
Good question. Any others?
Any other questions for staff? Okay.
Okay.
Is the applicant here?
I
think so.
I don't think so.
Okay. Great. Any other, do you have a question or ready for Portia? Okay. Okay, then if there's no further discussion on this or questions, we will move to motion.
I move that the Orem City Planning Commission approve the rolling sand preliminary subdivision for the property located generally at 1765 South Sand Hill Road in the R8 zone, subject to the conditions outlined in the staff report.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, Carl moved and Darren seconded. We approve the preliminary plat for rolling sand. Okay, we'll go to vote.
Aye.
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 Abstain.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. We have enough ayes, so that motion passes. So, yeah. And then before we adjourn, Gary, anything else
thank you for serving. It's glad to work with you, and on behalf of the mayor and council and staff, we are grateful for your desire to help us. It's an important role that you play. And we'll be doing some continuing training that we need to do in the future. And so if any questions come up, give me a call, let me know, email me, and we can talk about it. Always doing something new takes me 3 or 4 meetings or times before I get into the rhythm, and then just when I feel I know what I'm doing, I get released. So
Okay, thank you. And again, congratulations for making through your first planning commission meeting. I know it seems like a lot. Please, kind of to go off of Gary, if you don't understand something we're talking about, please ask. We're happy to pause and explain things. It does take this particular commission takes a little bit of time to get used to, and you will get there. So with that, do we have a motion to adjourn?
A motion, we adjourn.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, Mike moved and Britton seconded that we adjourn.
Aye.
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 Okay, we are adjourned at 6:23 PM.
Thank you very much.